Welcome to the first of a few planned chats coming up this month. It is June, and guess what? We're going to be doing some lipedema awareness. Lots going on in lots of groups. I want to, as always, speak on the bigger topic of self-care. I know I talk more than enough about vibration machines, but one of the things I do talk about is probably the most important complement to that is the food, the fuel. Anything I'm teaching you guys, and as good as you may be at sticking with the consistency, it's going to be relatively short-lived if you're not giving your body the components and the support it needs to move forward in whatever those physical gains are, whether you're just trying to move lymph, whether you're trying to lose 150 pounds, or just get better sleep. If the food isn't complementing what your body requires to move forward, you're going to put yourself in some cases in a worse situation perhaps than when you had started. So one of the faces here is probably very familiar. And as I did my snooping last night, there's a lot of common members between my group and the lovely Aimee. I'm going to say to the left, but that may not be the case on your screen. Aimee, thank you for joining us very early in your day. I'm going to have both of these ladies introduce themselves, but as you guys know, I am not the food person, won't own it, won't talk about it. I have two people here that are not only more versed in it, but living with the conditions that you guys are as well. So who better? I'm going to start with Aimee. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. So I am a clinical nutritionist. I'm living with stage 1 lippy, and I really just want to be an advocate for not just the community with lippy, but definitely stage 1, because I think there's such an importance of getting an early diagnosis. But I help women with lippy reduce their pain, inflammation, their weight through food. So I just want people to find a way that they can live alongside this condition and find a way of eating that suits them, and not following any real strict kind of way of eating, because everyone has different, preferences, and we just need to kind of know that this is forever, so we can't just be doing some quick fix straight away.
Would you say that there's any particular style or preference? I'm not a plan. I don't like putting people into a box, but I found your page the last couple of days I've been surfing it, very diverse. If I were to pick a word, I think why Kelly is maybe smiling a little bit more. There's never one path to your fitness or your achieving those goals, and we know that food isn't the same. But I was pleasantly surprised to see it wasn't, you have to do it this way or you can't do this. There was just openness and discussion. Does that make sense?
Yes. And the reason for that is because I guess before I was diagnosed, I was trying to heal my body for years and years and years and years. And during that process, I tried many things. And from doing that, a lot of different things worked. Yeah. So that's my experience of going, okay, well, there's not just one way. But the thing that I found the most adaptable and being able to kind of stick to that has a little bit more flexibility is definitely a low carb anti-inflammatory way of eating. But within that, the parameters are quite wide for different reasons for different people, because we all can set our own carb tolerance by finding out how many carbs, we respond to. And then for me, I really love using more of the strict protocols as a tool, not a long-term way of eating, but a tool. And that then gives you that flexibility of being a little bit more relaxed other ways during the time.
Kelly, look at her just, you've said it very similar in many different ways. Kelly's been through many mountain climbs and descents. But usually it's, anytime I notice that you have a setback, you knew it. I wouldn't say that Kelly has a label or you have a label, but I like that neither of you talk. There's never one book for everybody. You know what I mean? And I can assume too that things change, be that age, be it lifestyle events. Maybe, sometimes it's synergies, it's not just this thing or that thing. It's interactions between them. Kelly, you have a very similar approach. I wouldn't say you have a label to your food approach.
I don't. And I've had people that I worked with say things like, I'm scared to start because you're going to tell me I can't eat cheese.
That's
Yeah.
very common.
And I'm like, if I tell someone they can't eat cheese and they want to eat cheese, they're going to eat cheese. So I'm not the rule maker, you know. And the other thing is, if I set them up to fail because they really want to hold on to that cheese, I'm not doing them any, I'm not helping them.
No.
And people are so scared that they're going to have to give up something else. And I think when you're living with lipedema, you've already given up so much.
And food's a tough one. There's so many physical and emotional sides to it. It's a tough, it's not like giving up, a week of working out with me. It's very different.
But it feels like your body is completely different than what you think it should be. You don't recognize yourself in the mirror. It's doing weird things when you eat things that you've always eaten, or when you do activities you've always done, or when you just feel like you're living life. Your body's just doing all these things, and you've given up. By the time you reach out to someone like me or you or Aimee, by the time you reach out, you've given up so many things along the way trying to fix yourself. Like whether it was your family telling you to do it, or whether you read about it or a doctor told you, you've given up so much. And that's not to say you're not going to have to give up something else. But if you can reframe and you can realize you're a grown human who can decide if it's the right time for you to give up cheese or not, I feel like that's the first step. Because you might have to give up cheese, but maybe right now that would be so hard for you, like mentally and psychologically, like it's not the right time, and that has to be okay. And you have to forgive yourself, and you have to, I think Aimee and I both agree, if you can't do it mentally, you're not going to do it. And we don't want you to fail. We want you to succeed. And if that's a tiny step for you, then succeed in that step, and then as you go along, you'll see what else you can succeed in. But it doesn't have to be, all or nothing. And you may be dairy tolerant and not need to ever give up cheese. You don't know. So,
and
it's not forever.
I think a big part of that is we want it right now. So we need change. We want to see change, especially when we're living with this condition. And like Kel was just mentioning, that we look in the mirror, it doesn't feel like our body. We are inflamed to so many different kinds of foods. We don't know where to start. So then we get diagnosed, and then we just go, oh, well, then I need to jump straight into this diet. But if we do not fix our relationship with food, if we do not heal that, if we do not work with our disordered eating, we will be in that diet cycle forever. So if you want to start that diet straight away and cut out that cheese, guess what? In a month's time, once you finish that little plan, you're going to be back where you started, going back to the cheese, and then not feeling any progress. And then you're going to think that diet didn't work, so let me go try another one. So I think that part of fixing that disordered eating, working on that relationship, and it doesn't have to start straight away. Like you don't have to, it has taken me over 10 years to get to this point of how I eat. Like it's I think
there's a short-term and a long-term discipline. The difference between, some people, even with the machines, like they're kicking ass for the first month and they're doing it regularly. And then all of a sudden, there's no check-ins, there's no updates, and a month later, well, my knee hurt me. I can just tell by the questions sometimes. And there's a difference between having the initiative or the ability to get started and long-term. You can't look at it as forever. Maybe you need to cut cheese out right. And I love cheese melted.
I'm not a cheese person, and people are shocked by that. So whenever I say to people, my top 3 things I like people to look at cutting out or reducing. And then when I have dairy in asterisk, because I know some people can tolerate, maybe just by going to the A2, type of dairy. But I know my sister, when she had some health problems going on, and I was helping her with her diet and she had to cut out cheese, she was like, but Aimee, I eat a whole wheel of brie a day. And I was like, what? Like, and she, not a weight thing, not a problem. I was just like, how do you eat that? Like what? And she goes, I just love it. I'm like, fair enough. Can we just try and give it up for a month and just see, and she did. And, she got back on
Or
track.
maybe a square as opposed to the whole. I get my son will sit down and have a whole thing of brie. I get it. And it's, this isn't probably another whole conversation we should have for another day, but there's a very big, most of us have not been educated in what is food. There's whole foods, there's processed foods, and a lot of these intolerances, I think, whether it's something we're presently consuming and putting into our diet, or something, that we habitually had in our diet, sometimes you're making all this time and effort, but if like the dairy, the lactose, the glucose, I'll take the abuse on this one, but how do you know if you've never had it straight from the source? If it's been, pasteurized milk, I'll use as an example, it's cooked, a lot of the natural, a lot of the lactose issues that we're dealing with, I firmly believe in today's world are not so much the milk itself, but the process it goes through to be in the standards before it can get on the shelf, as opposed to perhaps what you and I might have been raised on at the farm. So,
and then with that as well, then because of those foods, exactly like you are saying, that we are eating not in their true form, have then caused us to have all these other intolerances. And then we react a lot more to all these other foods. So we kind of have to take these layers back and heal. And you can, with layers of healing, incorporate more foods eventually. Maybe there, you might always be intolerant to something, but
it's about whole milk cheese instead of from the store brie, so there's less resources out there in the professional world for this kind of stuff being pushed at you guys than the surgeries and the garments and so you know what I mean?
I think the biggest message, the most damaging message out there, and it like really upsets me every time I see it, is that lipedema does not respond to diet and exercise. And there is truth in that. I understand that the fat, the actual, disease, the scar tissue, the fat cells not working and responding. But when we group it like that, and that message that gets out there, it literally, from a viewer's point of view, thinks that, oh, well, there's no point in trying to, change the way I eat. But food, diet does have an impact on reducing inflammation, reducing, pain, reducing swelling, reducing weight, maybe not that bulk lipedema, but it can have an impact. So I think that messaging needs to be changed. I don't know how it needs to be reworded so the message is a little bit.
It's like trying to get them to understand what lipedema is. A lot of it, nothing against my docs and my PTs, the many of you that are joining us, but me. I mean, at the end of the day, it's more, we live in this world of profitability versus, medication has its place, but sometimes it's even the medications, they're causing our body to block essential nutrients or not absorb them in the same fashion. And, so you're taking something for the inflammation, but if you've never really given the food and the activity, I would rather give it a shot and rule it out because I'm so stubborn than just take some guy's word for it because he told me at the doctor's office. Are you gonna, if the guy made you wait 6-7 months just to get the damn appointments, get pissed off, push back a little bit more, guys, and ask. Those resources are there. And I personally, expect my medical professionals, the few that I do deal with, just like us, they're people, they struggle not necessarily with speaking about the information, but if they're not walking the walk and living the examples, like the first FDRS conference I ever went to in the States, I've never seen so much education around food, and it was just breakfast. Like I couldn't believe, I've never been to a trade show like that in my life, but a lot of it was not just the education, but no, you've got this whole massive community of people that are also being told the same misinformation. So, never accept that for an answer. Sorry for my little interrupt there, but it's, Aimee and Kelly are prime examples of, You know, you're the only one that's going to pull the sleeves up, and whether it's food or exercise, don't accept that type of a judgment. You know, it's like a death sentence. And as a woman alone, it kills the motivation. It really throws a curveball in the mental health side of it too. So
Absolutely. And a part of that mental health side as well, like going to these people to try and get advice. Like, let's say even your GP, absolutely. I know that, you know, they do such a small little subject
yeah.
on nutrition. But social media, like I see so many women in our community turning to influencers and, you know, people that are on Insta, like PTs that are giving out advice that's really not tailored to their individual needs or anyone living with a fat disorder. And they take it on. And like, even right now, I see the push of carbs aren't bad. And there's this big kind of, you know, push on that. And then, so someone who isn't living with this condition, yeah, okay, that's great. But someone who is living with this condition and then they get that messaging,
Yeah.
this is where it's so confusing. So it's really important to find someone who is educated with this condition to, you know, get your resources from. And the other side is and Kelly, we talk about this all the time, but the nervous system. So already, our condition, we need so many more nutrient dense foods to help our body work the best it can. But if our nervous system, the world that we live in, we're under so much stress, we are burning through those nutrients quick at such a rapid speed. So if we don't fuel our body with a great amount, and, you know, this is linked into trauma. I know that's another, you know, whole nother category talking about, but a lot of us have grown up with, you know, childhood trauma. And then that's just this cycle that we are, you know, also need to go down another path of recovery and healing.
But you didn't even talk about this 10, 15 years ago. You would have been told you were a lunatic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What is emotion? 10 years ago, there was no such term as emotional eating, even though we all did it, right?
Oh, I still do it
Right?
to an extent. I don't think it's all bad. As in, if you have a healthy relationship with food and then you do use it, because food can bring us joy. Like, think about it in the terms of like memories. Like, there is some foods that I eat now that are associated with a really beautiful memory. It doesn't have to be unhealthy food either. And that doesn't have to be an unhealthy relationship. And that brings me so much joy. So it's really about just
And
how
moderation too, you know. Kelly and I have talked about this in past chats, but if I was like a bodybuilder working out on stage, I'd call it a cheat day, you know. And
Yes. Yeah, I used to have cheat days.
you know, it gives you
Load
that
it up as if you're bulking or something.
yeah, you know, and for some people the cheat day works, for some people it doesn't. I'll tell you that right now too. But you know, if you're gonna have the cheese, if you're gonna have this, like, I'll sit down to a whole loaf of sourdough and butter if the movie's right.
We don't call it a cheat, right? Because that's where it
You
can.
know, I wouldn't do it the night before I got to be on camera in size 2 spandex working it, because I'm gonna bloat. So if you know that the cheese is gonna give you pain, or if you know that you're gonna be on your ass for 3 days because you had the rocky road, plan for it. So, you know, instead of beating yourself up, oh, I shouldn't have had the extra
I
bacon.
think you need to
Just
own
give
it. There's got to be
yourself the
some
next day to
ownership.
recover from the bacon, you
Yeah.
know. And I think part of cheat day is actually 2 days. So have your cheat day, but give yourself the day to recover from the cheat day and get back. It's just like a vacation, you know. You always need a day or two off from the good times you had. So, and I think you know, part of managing the food and accepting it long term is you know, knowing that, okay, well, maybe today I can't have the cheese, but Thursday I can. You know, we all need something to look forward to, right? And
Yeah.
you know, maybe you're planning it around your kids' activities. I know that's a big thing for me and Kelly right now. Oh, we're having hot dogs again today at the music recital. Are we? Great. You know, I could have brought a vegetable tray, but did I? No, I did not. I had 2 hot dogs. So you know, today I'm wearing sweats and hoodies. But you know, you need to allow yourself permission. And
Yeah.
remember, I know that sounds terrible, but you're the one that gives the permission, not somebody else, not the doctor. You know, quit seeking validation from me and Amy and Kelly and coming, you know the answers. And I think sometimes when we make these comments, it's not that we need attention or, oh, this one's the whiner. You just need the validation because you're questioning yourself. That's kind of how I always look at those types of comments. So it's okay to have a weak moment and lean on someone else to
I
get you
think you
through.
can change those weak moments into empowering moments where you gain
Absolutely.
more control. Because if you go to the fridge and you see something, or if you're craving something because there's been an ad on TV or whatever, but if you can sit there and actually say to yourself, I feel like that, and I'm going to have it. I allow myself to have it. Okay, I know what the consequence is going to be. Okay, I might be a bit swollen or I might get a little bit of pain, but to me, I actually want to have a little bit of this now because that I'm going to get more enjoyment out of it and I can put up with that. There is empowerment there. And like you said, okay, then the next day I would reduce the amount of carbs I ate for that day to reduce that pain and maybe hop on the Vibe machine a little bit longer, or, there are things, and living with this condition, we can incorporate those tools. That's where I think that it's really important. Like, we do have this condition forever. So we have to learn to live with it, and we're allowed to have those tools. So not feeling like, oh, damn, I have to, I shouldn't have to do this. Of course we don't want to do this. And it would be great if we didn't have this condition, but we really do have it. It's actually our reality. So putting, things in place is okay. And that's really where the ownership comes in.
I don't really want to clean the toilet as often as I do lately, but I got a 20-year-old boy that brings friends over. So, there's
I
other
don't
things that
wake
we
up at
suck it
5
up
o'clock in
with,
the
but
morning
when
with
it
my
comes to,
2-year-old. Yeah.
so, no, this is great. This is great. And I think, the simpler, the one time I did do a food plan, I had to be at this fitness show. And, I like to be completely vulnerable because, a lot of people see me on camera and, oh, she's just the vibe chick. But, I wasn't always, that skinny thing. And the first time, once I was slim, well, I was soft and squishy, and I thought, I had to do weights and I had to make these abs pop. And I didn't realize, even though I was skinny, none of that was going to show unless I stuck with this food plan. So I did this food plan. It was the hardest 6 weeks of my life. And after 5 weeks, I didn't realize, oh, I'm allowed to cook the vegetables. Not everything has to be like, I've been walking around with raw carrots raw. But I learned prep, and I don't prep every day. But even if you can kind of just look forward in your fridge a couple of days when you're at the store, we're living in a time, we talked very briefly before we got on camera, that we are living in a time when, McDonald's is probably more economical than a head of broccoli these days. And maybe you live in seasonal climates like I do, where you're very limited and have 3 fruit choices for about 6 months of the year. But the prepping and the planning, even just simple, things I never did in my whole life. It's pretty rare for me not to have a bag of sliced something ready to go in the fridge. Just, as a homeschool mom, that's a good tip to begin with. But even for myself, I'm not a breakfast eater. Never have been. Stop trying to force myself to be. I prefer more, let's say, of an intermittent fasting. But when I do get the munchies, now I find myself grabbing, for a couple of cucumbers or, whatever I might have prepared, versus putting a couple of pieces of toast and jam. And because, if I've got to make something, then I'm going to go for the toast, and I'm going to go for what's readily available, the banana bread. I usually, if anything is ready, it tends to
You
be.
just grab it. Exactly. And that's where meal prep can come in. But I think as well, like, to give you an example, I grew up with, an Italian mother. So I was raised with a really whole food, great, nourishing way of eating. My husband, typical Aussie, very similar to the American food. Like, if we go over to my in-laws' house and their grandchildren come along, not my child, but other grandchildren come along, they have to go out to buy specific food for them. So it's like the plastic cheese, they will just have a piece of
processed.
Yeah, party pie, like processed, just stuff like that. Now, my husband doesn't eat like that. We've been together for 20 years, but he eats very healthily, just like me, but he will always revert when it comes to always being tired or whatever, to a McCain. I don't know if you have that brand, but like one of those frozen pizzas. That would be his go-to, and he would just put in the oven. Where for me, I'd rather make that, a popcorn that's made myself, have my salad, or I would put some salmon and something together, avocado or whatever. Like I will revert to that. I revert to vegetables, really. That's what he will revert to. So if you have grown up with those types of foods, that's another thing you've got to kind of unlearn and educate yourself and change your palate. That's another big thing. These things,
That's that
again,
fight or flight response, you know, and where a lot of the emotional attachment comes from.
yes.
Not lipedema related, but I mean, I know a lot of my diabetics struggle with this. You know, I come from a German household where if there wasn't gravy and mashed potatoes, it wasn't a meal, right? Doesn't matter if there's anything green on there, you got to slather it with that stuff. And it was very hard with members of my family. You know, it's like you're not only changing what you eat, but how you cook, how you store, how you know, it can be very overwhelming. Very overwhelming. And
So
you know,
especially if you
the
just don't
point
know
you
where to
both
start.
made earlier, you know, chip it off in little pieces.
Yeah.
You know
Like
what I mean?
look at including foods over cutting foods out when you first start.
That's
So
an awesome way of saying it.
looking at more anti-inflammatory foods into your diet.
Yeah.
And then once you get a handle of that, slowly, you know, change one meal at a time. And then slowly you can start to cut out those foods that are causing you more inflammation. Because you will notice a benefit from just adding in those, you know, anti-inflammatory foods. It's not as big as the benefit from when you do cut them all out and have those anti-inflammatory foods. But, you know, this approach will help you to stay with it long term.
Well, and it speaks to the empowerment piece too. If you can see a subtle change, be that positive or negative, you kind of, and it's just like the exercise piece. Well, how long should I do the squat for? Well, I don't know. What does your squat look like, and how long? You know, it's not a black and white answer. You know, maybe
we need those. We want those restrictions, don't we? Like we want to have really tight parameters, and that's why those, you know, diets like isogenics and all those work, because it gives you such tunnel vision, and this is all you can do, eat and stick to. And
that their whole life, you know, I've said this in other sessions, you know, we live in a world where we're all unique and we're all special, and we even have selfie sticks, you know, we're so individual. But when it comes to our food and our ass, we're all looking for the diet pill, and I can't give it to you. Aimee can't give it to you, and Kelly can't give it to you. And the only reason, you know, we torture ourselves with these type of chats is we've been there. We've done that. I have succeeded. I have failed.
Every diet under the sun,
and you know, if you need help, there's 2 people on this call today. Don't call me, but if you need help with the food piece, you know, the best support you can give yourself for self-care is knowing your limitations. And I always say, be realistic with yourself. If the reason I hired my trainer friend is she scares me, and it made me be accountable. You know, I had to every day I had to text everything I ate. And it wasn't until I didn't even journal then, until I actually had the visual to look at, really, because, you know, I went through the kitchen and I only had 2 or 3 bites. Oh, wait a minute, 2 or 3 bites, 15 trips. Oh, I had half a cake? When? Who ate half that cake? You know, so we are all guilty of being absent-minded. It's not that we're absent-minded, it's just habitual. It's the most human thing to fail. But you know, it's okay to ask for help. And there's 2 awesome groups here. We're going to put a bunch of links at the end here, but you know, you're going to be much more successful surrounding yourself with people that do this for a living to a degree, but have had success themselves. You know, Aimee's point earlier, you know, nothing against my GPs and my doctors. You guys have a lot of things you have to know and understand intricately about my body. I can do the homework on the food, or there's enough resources out there. All I'm challenging you guys to do, for those of you watching, is nobody's going to do this for you. You know, I can point you in the right directions, and I can tell you what their groups are. But you've got to start that trial and experimentation phase at some point, but it doesn't mean it has to be a complete 360.
And can I just add to that, because this is a really important point, especially when people are starting out, and sometimes they try these different ways of eating and they're not really seeing results. And that can be a number of reasons, and maybe they're not, you know, doing it correctly or whatever. But we have so many other things that we need to make sure that are, you know, balanced, like our hormones, our thyroid, our gut health. If those things aren't working correctly, sometimes we're not going to get results from a way of eating. So this is why it's really important to go see someone who can help you with that, because that's, as nutritionists, this is what we do. We look at the whole picture. And that's why you go to your GP for 15 minutes, you go to a nutritionist for an hour to an hour and a half. And that's what you work on to see if you've got some, you know, thyroid, your blood, like we go through your bloods, everything like that. And that's just another thing that you want to consider. It's a whole picture. And nutrition is just one facet, right? There's so many other things we need to do as well to the puzzle.
But it's such a huge piece.
It is it's the biggest tool I use for lippy is nutrition.
And there's less and less focus. I don't want to say, again, the modern world has you know, is working against us, but you know, we live in a convenient world where moms work till 6 o'clock, and it's hard sometimes without the planning or even just the basic understanding of what that is, to put something decent on the table every night of the week. Kelly, what are you cooking tonight?
I pre-cook a lot of things. We will do like a lot of proteins at once. And then, so right now we have grass-fed steak, some salmon, and chicken sausage. And then I've added like a salad, or we did grilled asparagus. We have zucchini in there.
Nice.
And so we add things to the proteins. But I feel like it's all about back to what you said, Deb, it's all about what am I going to do to set myself up for success? Someone else can't do it. I mean, Aimee and I can say we feel like this is a good place for you to start, but we're not going to come to your house and cook it for you and put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a point where it's like, am I going to do this for myself or not do this for myself? And I see so many people who say, this is on an anti-inflammatory diet, but I ate it and it made me gain inches, but they're still going to eat it because it's on the plan. And I'm like, know your body. And if that food for you makes you feel terrible, makes you gain more inflammation, makes you have joint pain, I don't care what list it is on.
Yeah.
Don't eat it.
There's always exceptions. There's always exceptions. Good. And maybe it's not on the list, but you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
flexible.
Yes, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because I get the question all the time, which foods do I eat? I'm like, I don't know. And they want, an exact list. Well, if I follow the anti-inflammatory, that will work. I'm like, I don't know.
You didn't get a crystal ball from Amazon last week?
I don't know. And the other frustration is I went gluten-free and it doesn't help. And I'm like, but I've seen what you put on Facebook and everything you bought is a pre-packaged something. And if you're replacing your wheat bread with some highly processed gluten-free substitute and your pasta with some gluten-free high processed substitute and your frozen pizza with a gluten-free highly processed frozen pizza, and you're eating junk, but it says gluten-free, no, you're probably not having success.
If it says gluten-free, you
need to read your labels, like as in the ingredient list. Don't worry about it, because
you do.
You'd be amazed what they're putting in wholesome food these days, really.
Because in Australia, there is no law around what you are allowed to say on the front of a packet. So you can say something like Sean McCain pizza that he buys. If they wanted to, they can say healthy, anything like that. And I remember when I nannied years ago, and I was starting to become a nutritionist, and we're at the shops, and the little boy was like, "Oh, look, Aimee, this is healthy. It says this, this, this." And it was these muesli bars that were, and I, turned it around and I showed him, I said, let's go through the ingredient list and you tell me, does this sound like a food or is it, and we went through it, and he was like, why are they allowed to say that? And I was like, exactly. If the 6-year-old can tell us this, then, it should be changed. But you got to read those ingredients for everything.
And we know better. I think our parents and our grandparents to a degree, that there was a trust. There was a
Definite trust.
well, when I lived up north in the territories, my Oma used to send me these envelopes of Inquirer clippings. I don't know if you know what the Inquirer is, like the local, right?
I like
And it would be like, anything from food and diet to bad. She hated my hair, bad haircuts, but she always used to get mad at me and say, "Why would they print it if it's not true? They wouldn't print it if it's not true." And your doctor has the best of intentions, but in many cases in today's world, again, if you're not having success and you've had the same relationship, whether it's with your doctor, your nutrition, we're suggesting you seek other options, try a change, a holistic approach. Whether that's where you spend the rest of your time or not, check other paths, and through this you will learn and absorb. I know it's hard for everybody to sit down and do 7-8 hours a day on research on the internet. So go to these people that have done this. Talk to Aimee. Don't just post questions in groups. Look at the resources. Look at the guides in both Aimee's and Kelly's
It's
groups.
worth to invest in your health. And I think the other thing is like acknowledge that you don't know, like acknowledge that your parents might not be right. We're going from like a 3-generation, like think Sean's family, like my family's different because European is a bit different, but
Yep.
Sean's family came from like his mum is in her 60s and she was raised eating real food. Then when it came her time to cook for everyone, that was the time where all this processed packaged food, just like you were saying, she could make mashed potato out of a box. And she thought, well, why wouldn't I? I've just been spending all my day in the kitchen cooking, and now I can make gravy out of a packet. I can make mashed potato out of a packet by adding water. So she started passing that on, cooking for her children. So then let's say Sean's grown up with that kind of food, and then he's going to pass it on. Well, he hasn't because he has me. But this is how the cycle keeps going. So we need
the same. If your parents aren't active, if your parents weren't active and taking you out on bike rides and figure skating, I think we struggle with the cooking piece because we've lost our connection with understanding food, the roots of where it came from, and it has become a task more than just wholesome sitting around the dinner table and having a conversation.
Like in Australia, like as in growing up, I had to cook. Like that was just what we did, that we had to get in the kitchen and all cook together. Sean never cooked. His mum did it all for him. And I think the only time that, and I see a lot, and it's still happening today in Australia, is when you cook as if you're going to go cook a cake. And that's like, come on, let's go make a cake together. And that's the only kitchen time. So it's like kind of creating, and yeah, it's lovely. And it's, time together, connection. But we're not then cooking real food that we need to eat for ourselves, every day.
This might be a little bit of a crazy chat I had with a gal the other day, and just your mental energy when you're preparing that mood. If you're looking at it and you're going, I don't want the freaking beets, and I have to have it, that energy. What
you say in Italy,
don't talk down to your food, man. We are electric beings, and I honestly think, I don't know what the right term is, all my energy workers out there, but if you're talking down to your food, what do you think it's going to do to your body? So, look at it like your dog or your cat and love it. As don't be in a bad mood and screaming at your kids when you're preparing it either. There's sometimes if you're resenting what you're about to put in your mouth, that whole process is just adding more inflammation because you're stressed out about it.
Yeah. And I know, like Deb, with, the exercise talk, the other thing with lipedema is, and Kel, this, when we get in that state of inflammation, the last thing we want to do is move our body. Like I want to wear my robe. I do not want to go outside. I don't want the clothes to touch my skin. I want to lay on my couch. Everything feels heavy and hard to get up, and like the effort. And then we know that we've got to exercise, and the exercise will make us feel better. But that's when, diet and what we eat really comes full circle. And that just helps us to not be so much in that inflamed state, so that then we do get up and help move our body, which will then reduce more inflammation.
The one thing that the food can do over any activity is it's the one thing you never really, if you're in a surgery or an injury or a trauma situation, you don't have to stop the food piece. You might need to change what you're doing on the vibration. You might, so, focus your, a lot of you are freaking out because I can't move my lymph. I can't get out. What am I going to do? If you get a better relationship with your food, or even some basic, go-tos that are of quality for you, it'll also act as a gap when you are in times of being inactive, whether it's due to medical travel. Food is the one thing that you can control as the constant more than many things as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Nope. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask Aimee to speak to something that she has spoken to. She did a really great reset in her group in the last couple of weeks. But one of the things that she and I have both struggled with in different ways is disordered eating. And I think with lipedema, I'm finding it more and more and more. Women do not eat enough ever. I had told Aimee a week or so ago, it was a joke in my house. I have 3 boys who are grown now, but when they were little, they were like 2, 4, and 6. It was kind of a joke that they ate more than mommy. And a 4-year-old should not eat more than mommy.
No.
Ever. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I went years and years. And when your body keeps changing, and I didn't know about lipedema when my sons were small, but when your body will not obey the food rules that everyone tells you your body should obey, you do more of what they tell you. You eat less and less and less and less. And it still doesn't work, but you keep thinking, I must still be eating too much.
Yeah, you gaslight yourself.
It's the only solution, you're the only explanation really that society provides you. That's it.
Right.
Or
doctors, doctors say, well, you must be eating too much. You must be eating the wrong thing. You must be doing this or this or this. And it's almost always centered on you are failing where food is concerned and you're putting too much on your body.
And a great example of taking that food, with my reset, that is not restricted eating in my reset. Yes, it's plant-based. We do it only for a week, but women who come and join that are eating more food than they did previous to the reset, and they lose weight. And that's just showing that they, because the thing that I try to get the message out about the disordered eating, one of the biggest things that we can do that is a problem for our lippy, one of the biggest mistakes we make is under eating, because that actually can cause progression, because we need everything else to work together.
It certainly contributes to the inflammation right now.
Yeah, straight away. But when we undereat, hormone health gets impacted, thyroid health. We can lose our ovulation. The amount of women that come to me, clients, and they don't have a period anymore because they've been on one of these ways of eating. Maybe they haven't done it correctly because they haven't worked with someone, but that is all then as soon as our hormones go out, we are, in this cycle of trying to chase. And yeah.
You're more likely to fall off the rail too, because you're freaking starving. When I was talking about my plan earlier, my girlfriend Kim that did that for me, I was eating 6 to 8 times I literally could not. I wasn't even, there was so much food, lettuce takes up more volume than, but and I went from, please don't hate me, but I started at 132 pounds. I wanted to bulk up. Okay. I wanted to gain muscle and be this fitness chick at this show. I was 126 pounds after she tripled my calories for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, she tripled my calories. And I'm not afraid to eat to begin with. What I will say in my bigger days, to Kelly's point as well, the only way
7 kilograms, I'm just letting everyone in Australia know that's how much.
Yeah. Canada's half and half, right?
Okay.
But for me, a lot of it was, I thought the only way to lose weight was not to eat. I was an 80s, 90s girl, and skipping breakfast probably didn't start as a preference. It was what everybody else was doing, right?
Yeah.
So peer pressure can be a very horrible thing. You just never expected it from anything more than the girls' locker room, but it's coming from the medical community. You guys are being shamed for something that's not your fault. But not feeding yourself is only contributing to the problem.
And with the food, like you just said, having this big salad and you ate a lot of it because it was lettuce. I do eat a lettuce salad. If you follow me on Insta,
Yep.
every day is this lettuce salad, but it's a snack. And I grew up as my family, and it's the thing I would take to a deserted island. My whole family would. But everything I eat, and this is a message I really push, everything I eat, my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner, I love and I enjoy. And that's how I stay to my way of eating. You have to come up with ways to create food that you love, make your, healthy versions of your favorite foods, change those, your palate and everything. But there is never a meal that I eat, unless it was something I had to quickly run and jump out of the, house or whatever. But everything I eat, and I will never just eat, like I have to feel satisfied. And that I suffered from binge eating, which I know a lot of people in the community do. And that was part of my recovery process. And that's how I will never go back to binging, is because I'm completely satisfied, nourished, but also my taste buds sing every time I eat.
I think that's an important part too, because so many women, they start reacting to foods they like they'll have sensitivities or intolerances develop, and then they get stuck with they're only eating 2 or 3 things, the same meals over and over and over, because part of it is overwhelm, part of it is they don't want to try again, and part of it is they've given up so many of the things they ate that they don't know what else to make. Even if they're trying, they just don't know what else to do, and it really is hard. And Aimee said, I don't remember who in your family said, I feel better when I don't eat.
My brother who has lippy, me and my brother have it. He's undiagnosed, but he definitely has it. And yeah, he said that. He said, the best I feel is if I'm not eating. That's because he parties on the weekend and, things. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's our community. You do. And that's the other thing. Like the other thing I feel the best when I'm the skinniest I am. And I've had to, over the years, kind of go, is that diet culture talking because I look a certain way and I'm skinny now? Or is that, and if I look within, no, because the inflammation's reduced, I don't have as much of that gag, the fluid, the heaviness, it's all gone because I'm slim. But it's hard to maintain and hard to get there because it will just keep, the inflammation does come all the time. So it's got to be on it all the time.
It is. And I find that when I don't eat enough, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I wanted to do Aimee's reset is because she made it so easy. Here's your meal plan. And it's not hard to prepare, but it makes me hungry. Like if you're putting nourishment in your body wakes up and it's like, oh,
digestive system.
I'm being nourished. So then your body's like, I like nourishment. I should get more nourishment. And our digestive systems, I want to say this the best way. Because if you have lipedema, you need to heal your gut. You need to work on your gut health. And if your gut health is not that great, you're not absorbing all those nutrients. Whatever you put in your body, you're not getting it all. You can take handfuls of supplements. You're not getting it all because your body can't break it down and can't absorb it. And so if you're, in addition to that, not eating enough, you're only getting a part of that food that you're putting in your body, and it's not even enough to begin with. And so I struggle with this a lot because if you have had disordered eating and you're not eating consistently enough, then it's very hard to make yourself eat. And it's very hard to eat enough to keep yourself on track because your default is like, well, I just won't eat.
Yeah.
It's a real mindset shift the mental part, yes, but also the physical part. To not really have hunger, but to say, I'm going to nourish myself and to make that choice for yourself as part of your self-care. I've seen a lot of women struggle. Yes, with the mental part of I shouldn't eat because I look this way when I look in the mirror, but also it's physically hard. Like your body just doesn't want to eat as much. You have to make a focused effort to say, I'm going to eat this and then a little bit more. And once you start giving your body the nourishment it needs, all those cells start responding and saying, yes, now I can take in more and I can eat more. And especially if you're giving it all those healthy foods that it needs. It will respond, but it can be a really like baby step kind of process, not all at once. And so I don't want women to lose hope, because it really is a struggle if you've had disordered eating, or if you think you can't have disordered eating because you weigh 300 pounds. I think that's a myth too.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Well, one point I need to raise, Kelly has raised this in past chats as well, and it plays into something Aimee said, but we've talked a lot about, what you're losing and what we're taking away from you. And you got to be pissed off at somebody. I can be that somebody. I'm totally fine with that. But sometimes, maybe you gave something up because it was bad for you, but you haven't tried it in 10 years. This is not a definitive, I've done the work, I've got the playbook, and now I can live my life. This is an ongoing, get pissed off. That's to me a big motivator. Nothing motivates me more than proving my position. But I would say for many of you that have had to give up things, or maybe in the course of the evolution of this disease and your other lifestyle changes, maybe some of those tolerances have been regained. I see it with the exercise all the time, where it's, oh, I can't do this, or I didn't do that. And a lot of times, like the food, we're being too hard on ourselves too quickly. It took you 40 years to get to this situation. Doing an hour workout isn't going to make up for, the workouts you never did. And the food is the same, like a medication. You've got to give it not only an honest effort, but you've got to be patient and give it some time. 30 days is to me, whether you're taking a medication or implementing even just some small changes, maybe it's just drinking more water, maybe something that simple, or actually eating food more frequently, or little things. Another thing I see is everybody's so afraid of salt. You need salt. You need the minerals in the salt. I have these little.
I literally drink. And this is the other thing, like people are so scared of salt. And I remember back in the day, I remember being like, I cannot have over 1,500, milligrams of salt, and doing all those diets that people did. I eat so much salt because, especially Italian, we just pour that salt on. I still have low sodium. Okay. So when I've gone and done my hair mineral tests, analysis, I have low sodium, and that's just because it's not getting into the cells. And, I haven't retested, but that usually is my thing. And my potassium is low, but that's also an adrenal thing, and can be because of my nervous system and how it just runs, maybe fast paced. But yeah, there's so many things. So definitely don't be scared of salt. But yes, if you're going to eat the sodium, you have to, the sodium, when you eat the salt, that goes into your cell. And if we don't eat potassium to pump it back out, that's when you swell. So if you are eating enough potassium, it will flush that salt out of those cells. Your cells will be hydrated and you won't have fluid. Because a lot of people go, oh my gosh, I literally put salt on my tongue, and then all of a sudden I'm 3 kilos, pounds heavier. And they then get scared of salt and they go, oh yeah, that's right. That's why I have to be low sodium. But it's just that they've got to, balance everything else out. And
you know what? No, neither Aimee or Kelly know the exact amount of salt that you should be consuming per day for lipedema. There's no,
I don't
need to be sarcastic, but I get it, because some of the questions I used to ask Kelly and poor Cheryl, I'm sorry, back in the day, some of these questions, but I'm glad that you're eager. But, if you've been a group member for like 8-9 years, and then you've read the guides, and part of it is absorbing that information and revisiting, so if you're having common questions, and if this is the first time that you've ever thought salt was an issue for you, sometimes it's something so ridiculously obtuse. Maybe you don't have sensitivities and you're giving up the brie cheese just because you're low on sodium and you never knew. So these things all have a synergistic effect. And again, it's not going to be an overnight process. I don't have the rights to give you the book on Amazon, but a lot of it is you're you, and you've got to continually be experimenting. And sometimes I'd like to sort of get towards wrapping up, but there are some, there are things that you can regain in this process. It's not like you're losing everything. Sometimes as your body changes and improves through this self-care process, a lot of times you can revisit other things, just like activity. You know, you couldn't do a squat a year ago, and now you're telling me my workouts are boring because they're not hard enough. So everyone can progress. But food, I still believe, is bar none, will have the biggest impact. A little more bang for your buck, a bit more buck these days. But I think if you encompass and follow some of the, you don't have to be alone, and you don't have to do this on your own. But the biggest thing we lack is some motivation and some accountability. There's two awesome examples of women. To Aimee and Kelly's point, you know, we all know whether we're eating good or not. But very often we sometimes forget. I don't want you guys to be, you are not your condition. And because many of you have 3 or 4 or 5 or 20 of them. So you are not your condition. And it doesn't mean that because you have a condition that it's a death sentence, or there's no way that you can navigate out of this. So don't let anyone medically or otherwise make you feel that way. You just need to find the right space. And you know, maybe it's not Aimee's space, maybe it's not mine, maybe it's not Kelly's. Don't give up just because the first attempt wasn't a complete success. And revisit some of these things over time. Maybe you were in a different headspace and it didn't work for you because you were pissed off and didn't want it to work. You know, that's me a lot of times too. So last points, anything that I didn't ramble over or anything that needs to be raised? Kelly?
I think of it, yeah. You have anything?
I would like Aimee to tell us what she's been working on that she has available for us for Lipedema Awareness Month.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the resources and while we're at it, and I'll come back to you, Kelly. But so what the resources are, you know, she's not just this sparkly thing on the other end of the screen, but you can find her. And what is the best way that we can invest ourselves in your resources to be successful with them? How's that?
So you can find me at Instagram under the Clinical Nutritionist. That's where I post a lot of my inspirational stuff, and you can follow my journey. You know, like I posted my pregnancy journey, and I've just recently weaned, and that made me balloon, but I've been able to get that back down. I run a Facebook group called Nutrition for Lipedema, a holistic approach. And then I, you know, do one-on-one consultations. But I have been working on something so exciting. This has taken me a long time. If you do know me and you do follow me, you know I do things in my own time, but I have taken some time out because I've been raising my daughter. But I finally have put together a meal planner, which is so funny that we've been talking about meal planners. And this is not your typical meal planner. This is not this thing that you're going to follow for 4 weeks and you're going to see all these results. I've been kind of prompted from, you know, the community for a long time to please come out with a cookbook, because one of my gifts is literally creating food and cooking food and turning it into, I can make anything taste good. Like I just can get in the kitchen. I don't need to follow a recipe and I can just create. And the cookbook to me just didn't feel, I don't know, I needed something more. Wanted something more. So I came up with a meal planner, and it goes through, I've got 40 meals, 40 recipes in there for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then optional snacks. And it doesn't tell you how many calories or protein or fats. It does tell you carbs per meal. So we're trying to take that diet cycle of tracking and whatever, but I teach you can choose different carb limits per week to see where your carb tolerance fits, to help you, whatever your goal is, if you're trying to lose weight or just inflammation, and you get to just play around with that. But I run through like how to stock a lipedema friendly pantry, where to go and get some of these brand name products that I, you know, simple swaps that I make, my 5 principles of slowing down progression. Yeah, there's just heaps in there, my philosophy on food. And it's not something that you have to follow for every meal. It's just, you can use it as a cookbook and choose something and know that the food, the recipes in there are going to nourish your body, are lippy friendly, low carb, anti-inflammatory.
That's
awesome.
Yeah. It takes a lot of the, what do I do next out of the equation?
It's not knowing where to start, not knowing how to throw a meal together is a
that's
really
fantastic. And so just to clarify, what is a wean?
Oh, stop breastfeeding.
Oh,
weaning your
okay. It's awesome. I assume that's what it was, but I just wanted to
yeah.
clarify.
So I
Didn't know
did
if it
that
was
in
like
November.
weaning yourself off something or okay.
Oh, sorry. I weaned my child back. She was 20 months at the time.
So that has changes for sure. That changes you in
I gained 9 kilos in 3 months.
yeah.
And I was just like, what is going on? And I knew I wasn't feeling great, but I was just going, I kept saying to my husband, what's wrong with me? Like, why? What's going on? And it wasn't until I went to go to the beach and with my mother's group, and I put on my shorts and I couldn't put them on. And I went, I knew something was up. And I had been told, people on my Insta had messaged me when I was saying I'm going to start weaning and everything. Like, my child was a very booby monster girl. I wanted to stop at 1.5. I made it to 2 years, a week before she was 2, which, I'm a hippie, so I wouldn't go to 5, but I literally had messages saying, do not stop breastfeeding ever. Hold on to it as long as you can, because it's when I progressed. And I was like, no, I just lost all this. I got back to my pre-pregnancy weight just before I started weaning. And then I decided to start weaning. And then, I exploded. And I was like, but I wasn't going to let it be my story. I was going to change my path. And I put all my tools into practice. And I reduced the weight and got back down. And
That's fascinating though. So, okay. And then, I just wanted to clarify because I thought I knew what it meant. And myself too, even though I don't have lipedema, the day I was working trade shows and I didn't think I'd never done the bottle thing. So my poor daughter was living at trade show booths. And when I finally decided to cut, I gained 8 pounds per side. And, we know we go through changes when we change those things. The world average is 4 years, by the way. But
I was like,
this is just another example of social,
well, you know what? It was the most unnatural thing. Like, I am very child led with my whole being a mama. And it was the most unnatural thing I ever did was wean. But I was ready. I knew, because I want to have another baby, and I had to wean so I could do my reset, do a big detox, because I don't want to progress in my second pregnancy. So I knew I had like a deep, a meaning that I had to do it. But it just was the most unnatural thing to do.
More experience in the trunk though. And this is actually a really interesting point for the moms out there that might be dealing with this, whether you're diagnosed, so just something maybe to expect and prepare for if, especially because you tend to be ramping up certainly on the nutrition, the supplements, the nutrients when we're feeding to begin with. If you're an older mom like me, when I was, there's other things that you're trying to be mindful of as well. So just mentally, I think sometimes when we're expecting or prepared for something, what's the worst that could happen? As opposed to being completely blown away and shocked and going for that tub of chocolate ice cream, if you will. So in the group then is where we can find the book, or where do we purchase the book?
On my website, if you go to the Lymph Nutritionist, if you go into my group, there's links up there, because I've been running a special offer, but I think by the time this airs, it won't be. The book is coming out tomorrow, the 6th of June.
Congrats.
Yeah, so it's just an ebook, so that will go into everyone's inbox, and then if you do purchase it, it will go straight there from tomorrow. But so you can find it if you come to my Instagram, my group, or to my website. It's all
we'll get
there.
all Amy's stuff posted up here in the comments once we get this aired. And Miss Kelly, any closing remarks, wisdom?
We've said a lot. I think it's been good, and I hope that for lipedema awareness, my hope is that women will become more aware of themselves. Because this isn't just about making the world aware of lipedema. Yes, that would be nice. But those of us living with this, we need to be aware of what our bodies do, aware of what we need, aware of our stress. Stress is I think it's so overlooked. Yeah. It's such a trigger for a lot of people, but allow your life to be calm and just breathe and figure out what you need, because I think all of us with lipedema haven't gotten what we've needed for a really long time, whether it's from our loved ones, doctors, whoever it is out there, no one understands what we're going through. So give yourself a little bit of that.
Think of yourself as your daughter. Would you let your daughter treat herself that way, or have a doctor, or, so sometimes I find, as moms especially, we tend to, it's our, we're at the end of the totem pole, and, if the dishes are there at the end of the day, that's our wheelhouse. But I think sometimes the best gift, because many of us are dealing with generational things, or maybe it's a sibling or something, like, I think, like anything in life, the best lesson I can teach my daughter is how to advocate for herself, and by doing that myself. So if you're not standing up for yourself, don't expect your kids to. You know what I mean? And that's not just a lipedema thing, but sometimes it's hard to be strong. So that's why you have people like me and Aimee and Kelly. We are here to lift you up and support you. But if any of you are in a real tough situation and you truly need help, posting a comment on a forum is usually not everybody gets it, and not everybody's mentally in the same place that you are. I don't like to invite being completely accessible, but if you ever are in harm's way, or you're harming yourself, or you're concerned that you may, message me, message Aimee, message Kelly. I'm not opening myself up to we can't do it for you. We cannot do it for you. But sometimes, you're just not in a place where you need to lean on others for a little bit of strength. So check out the resources we're going to offer. Kelly, I'd like you to recap. I know everybody knows who you are because I talk about you on my page, but if you could recap in your group. I have a lot of new members, and if I haven't mentioned Aimee's group is new, but Kelly's group is just as massive as mine. And I want to point out, it's not an allergy page. It is not a food plan page. It's very well rounded, and I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, so the group I admin is lipedema and food sensitivities, and it's focused on figuring out for yourself what foods are best for you, what foods might trigger inflammation. And there are over 300 resources on there about everything from foods to therapies to all kinds of different stuff. And then I have Wild Heart Wellness for Lipedema as my personal lipedema page, and I'm doing a little bit of a different angle for lipedema awareness, more empowering and focusing on what can you do for yourself, instead of just giving out information and cute things you can post on your Facebook page, which is important, but that's just where I am right now.
I would say personally, in my experience with Kelly, there's never any perfect space for everyone, just like there's never any perfect diet or workout. But I would suggest, if you are in the local area, if you're looking for more of a personal relationship with Kelly, seek her out through Wild Heart. Not unlike my group, sometimes people get frustrated. Well, you didn't comment back on my question. If you're having a real issue and you're making a comment at the bottom of the 150 comment post about, I don't know, red dye 40, you know what? Sometimes I miss it. And sometimes you spell my name wrong, so I don't get tagged either. Don't assume that we're not trying to get back to you, but between the three of us, we have a following of about 25 to 30,000 people between our groups. We didn't mean to miss you, but sometimes, you know what? I'm not so much this way, but recognize part of the reason we're talking with Kelly and Aimee today is they too deal with the things that you do. And if you're having a bad day and you're reaching out for help, maybe they're having a bad day and they just need to get away from it. I know one of the big things that Kelly warned me, and Cheryl as well, when I got into this community, is you can't be everything to all people all the time. You can't be on all the time. And I'm like, you watch me. And then about a year and a half in,
You're like, I can't.
I literally, for a week, I didn't even answer a text. I just thought, I can't do it all. I can't do it for you. Oh, damn, she's right. So, even though I'm the Energizer bunny, and I'm not dealing with these conditions, sometimes even the people that are here to support you, they just need your support in time and a little bit of patience in getting back to you. It's not that we don't want to. And for me personally, sometimes I just want to think about it. You know what I mean? It's the end of my day, and your stomach is there. I had one the other day that my stomach is hurting. I'm like, why would the stomach hurt? Why would the stomach hurt? So I'm on the machine and I'm like, oh, that's, yeah, because we're, sometimes I gotta just put myself back into your situation. We want to get the best information. But above all, I just, we're very real, very genuine people. And, you know, we have lives too. So sometimes we're not ignoring you. We're just trying to give as much of our information and time to everyone as we can. Is that fair? But you got to invest some time too. Sorry. For those of you that I bark at weekly, hey, did you watch my getting started video? Did you look at the featured items? I don't mean to be like that, but some days I just have to be. We have invested hundreds, thousands of hours between the three of us providing you tools. We ask just invest a little. We're not asking you to invest time in what we're trying to teach you. You're investing time in yourself. Okay? Cool. We need to do this again because there's so much more I want to say to Aimee. I don't know yet though. So we'll see how the rest of the month goes, but I would like to do more about food regularly, and it's just not my wheelhouse. So we'll talk about that.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me. That's so lovely. It was lovely to connect with you both.
Yeah. Thank you for introducing us, Kelly. This is all Kelly. It's always all Kelly.
Yes. Oh, I know. I feel Kelly's always been behind me. I always feel very supported by Kel.
Well, and it's, you know, I think what's cool about the two of you and the connection is there's lots of lipedema pages. And, you know, this is probably the first international, you know, we got Canada, we got the US, and nobody's even brought up the spelling difference. It's so refreshing. You know, there's just something else. It's just another hurdle in this. Do we have to have different spellings? Come on, we're trying to work together.
The
Right?
way, you know, it's lipedema in Australia, but I just say lipedema because for me, it's, well, I guess I heard about it through the American platforms when I first was diagnosed, but lipids fat is lipids worldwide. We don't go to the doctor in Australia and go, can we get our lipids tested? I'm like, so why have we then come with a different name? It just blows my mind. So
I you know what, it had to do with funding or some grant application back in the day, I'm sure. I will say that, you know, Australia does ring the bell. The awareness, that purple bridge last year was,
oh, how cool is that?
That was freaking awesome. Yeah, we got to step it up. But yeah, there's leaps and strides every year. You know, I look forward to seeing maybe some traffic coming your way, Aimee. Kelly, I really think at the end of the day, if you do have a food question, now you know where I'm going to send you. So I hope you guys have a great week. Kelly, I hope you have no more power issues.
I know.
If you do have questions and you weren't able, because this wasn't a live, but if you do have something specifically for myself or one of the gals here today, kind of keep it related to the page. So if it's vibration machine related, don't be bugging Aimee. And if it's food related, please don't be bugging me. So we'll put the contact stuff in the end. And I think today was good. If there's food topics or if there's some tangents off of this that you guys would like to talk about, especially if it's like one of those like stigmas or things you've been told you can't do or can't talk about, that really lights me up. So if there's any of that kind of stuff that you guys want to bring forward as far as suggestions, I would really appreciate that feedback. And I'd like to keep this conversation going because it is such an important thing. And I tend to grab, you know, it's easy for me to tag Aimee or Kelly and tell you to deal with this, but I think I would like to incorporate a few more food chats regularly because we all know we can't all hide in the vibe page and just shake it off, you know, and I do that sometimes too much. So thank you guys for joining me. Aimee, I know it's early morning for you, so you're heading off for lunch. I need to go feed my crew, and this was fun.
Thank you.